The two dogs had never done anything together. Not once in 2 years. That night, they moved like one animal. And nobody in that house knew what it meant until the morning. Remy was a 4-year-old boxer mix. 55 pounds. A dog who lived as if every moment was urgent, and then forgot what was urgent. Duke was a 6-year-old English Bulldog. 52 pounds. A dog who lived as if time was a mild inconvenience and moved accordingly. They had occupied the same house for 2 years, without forming anything resembling an alliance. Different beds, different feeding corners, different approaches to every room. The family, their mother Claudette, her husband Terence, and their daughter Simone, 28 months, had long since stopped hoping the dogs would befriend each other. They coexisted. That was the deal. So when Claudette got up at 2:30 a.m. for water and found both dogs sitting outside Simone's bedroom door, she stopped in the hallway and stood there for a moment, just looking at the image of it, because she had never seen them in the same space without someone stepping between them. She told herself, they heard something. She told herself, toddlers make noise in their sleep all the time. She went to the kitchen. She got her water. She came back. They were both still there. Remy's head was down, muzzle pressed to the gap at the base of the door. Duke was sitting upright, breathing. She could hear him breathing, in the deliberate way bulldogs breathe when something has their full attention. She said their names. Neither moved. She opened the door. Simone was in her toddler bed on her back, blanket pulled to her chin the way Claudette always tucked her. The night light was on. The room was at 72 degrees. The humidifier was running. Everything looked right. She crossed to the bed and put her hand on Simone's forehead. Temperature normal. She watched the blanket rise and fall. It was rising and falling. But when she leaned down and put her ear near Simone's mouth, the breath was different. Shallow in a way that didn't match the rise of the blanket. A slight whistling quality. An effort she hadn't seen before. Claudette was a middle school science teacher. She had no medical training. She had 2 dogs standing behind her who had coordinated for the first time in 2 years to bring her to this door. She picked up her phone and called a nurse line. The nurse said, "Describe the breathing exactly." She did. The nurse said, "How old is she?" 28 months. The nurse said, "I'm going to suggest you go in tonight. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The urgent care physician diagnosed croup, laryngotracheobronchitis, viral swelling of the upper airway that creates the characteristic whistling, stridorous breathing as the airway narrows. It develops overnight, often following a mild illness the previous day. The swelling had progressed to a degree where Simone's body was compensating, working harder to move air through the narrowed passage, in a way that was not immediately visible, but was producing a specific biochemical and acoustic signature. The physician explained that the classic presentation, the seal bar cough, often doesn't develop until later in the episode. The early stage produces what Claudette described, a subtle change in the quality of the breath. He said, "You came at the right time. Another 2 hours of this, and we're talking about significant respiratory distress." He asked, "What made you check on her?" Claudette said, "My dogs were at her door." He looked at the chart, then at her. She said, "They never do anything together." Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. The acoustic signature of stridorous breathing. The particular frequency range produced by a narrowing upper airway falls within the range that dogs detect and orient toward as meaningful. It is different from normal breathing in ways that a dog's auditory system parses before a human lying in an adjacent room would register it as changed. Remy had his muzzle at the door gap, reading both the acoustic and the olfactory signal. Duke was upright, orienting toward the sound. They had not, in 2 years of coexistence, agreed on anything. That night they agreed on the one thing that mattered. Simone received treatment and came home the next morning. She was fine. She recovered over 5 days with nebulized medication and close monitoring and a fair amount of popsicles, which Claudette let her have, because some situations call for popsicles. Remy and Duke went back to their separate corners. They did not become friends. They did not suddenly coexist with warmth and shared purpose. They returned, within 2 days, to their established arrangement of ignoring each other across a household they happened to occupy simultaneously. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. But Terrence installed a camera in the hallway that week. A wide-angle night vision model, angled to cover the door to Simone's room. Not because he thought he needed proof of what had happened, because he wanted to know if it happened again. It has happened 3 times since then. Each time the footage shows the same thing. Remy first at the door, Duke arriving within 2 minutes, both oriented toward the same point. Each time Claudette has checked. Each time the checks have been warranted. 2 more croup episodes. 1 ear infection that was building before any fever appeared. She doesn't wait anymore. When the camera notification shows 2 dogs at the same door, she gets up. She has learned to read the language they invented together. In a hallway, in the middle of the night. For a child, they were both, in their separate ways, completely certain mattered. Tomorrow, the story of the Great Pyrenees who stood at a kitchen window for 11 hours, and what was in the yard that morning.